summer of 1965. Well, my parents, they moved around. Our family moved around from house to house. We moved almost every year. And I went to, sometimes I'd go to a different school every year, sometimes twice a year. I'd come back to some of the same schools for different years of my life, but I usually went to a lot of schools, so I lived in a lot of neighborhoods. I could probably become an authority on Southeast Portland because I lived all over it. And it was a great part of town to live in. I really loved it. In the 60s, it was just wonderful. And I was going to, I'd gone to 4th grade in Sam Barlow Elementary School. By 1965, I was 10 years old. I just turned 10 in July, late July. And I was about to enter the 5th grade at Sam Barlow. And I can remember one of the biggest influences of my life in 1965 in the summer was music. And I tell you, music was really kicking it then. And I'm telling you, it was, the Beatles just released their Help album, and there was just nothing like that ever. And then there was other big hits, like the Beach Boys' California Girls. I thought that was awesome. And the Rolling Stones, I Can't Get No Satisfaction. Everything was different. It was all changing, and it was all getting so much better. And then Stingray bikes came out. I remember the first Stingray bike. My brother, Pat, he was a whiz at putting things together. And he built me one. He built me one out of scratch. And he figured out how to make the candy apple red paint. And I can't remember how he did it, but he mixed some ingredient with lead. And he ended up mimicking this candy apple red paint. And it was just great. So he built me a Stingray from scratch with the Schwinn frame, and, got the pieces one by one, the handlebars and the banana seat. Later on, I got that. Some of the banana seats were hard. They were like this hard canvasy kind of feel. And then they had the tuck and roll ones that had a little bit of glitter in them. Those were pretty cool, too. I had the tuck and roll one without the glitter. It was white. And I eventually got a taller sissy bar, but for the back, it was just the low-cut bar. I thought the Stingrays were really awesome. I would, one of my favorite things to do was to just chop it up. Now, I took the fenders off first thing. If a guy can't ride through a mud puddle without getting wet, then it wasn't worth it. So I took the fenders off first thing, and I used to adjust the handlebars and the seat. I'd put the seat pointing upward, or put the handlebars forward, pull them back, that sort of thing. And that was, trick riding, daredevil riding, that was the thing to do. Put up homemade ramps in the street and go flying over them. Another thing that we experimented with when we were kids then, is a group of guys in the neighborhood. We decided we're going to put a rock band together since, the music was just so cool and it was so powerful. And we were listening to Kissin' Radio then, and that was the station in Portland to listen to for rock and roll. And so we couldn't come up with a name. We all loved Gary Lewis and the Playboys, so we decided to just call ourselves the Playboys without the Gary Lewis part. The only thing I could play on a guitar was I could play Louie Louie, and I could play the opening riff from Satisfaction, and that was about it. And we didn't have an amp, I barely had a drum set. One guy who was the bass player had a broom, and he would just fake it up there, and it was a lot of fun. I can't imagine kids doing anything like that today, but we did. We had a lot of fun. We had some of the girls in our neighborhood come by and cheer us on, and we'd get up there and sing stuff. Not sure what songs we sing. Probably the Beatles and some Beach Boys stuff. Then there was skateboards. Skateboards were really cool because we would take the wheels off the store-bought skateboards and make our own frames out of like pieces of plywood or whatever, and just try to improvise and come up with the newest and coolest new skateboards. There were really good treats. I remember the Hostess snowballs and the cupcakes we loved, and there was these nickel candy bars, and one of them was called Big Time. I really liked that one. And the Hollywood bars too. I think they were made by the same company. And the Zero bars and milkshake bars. And then it became a big fad to put the milkshake bars in the freezer and freeze them solid. And we used to also drink Kool-Aid and Pillsbury Funny Face drinks. Those were great. Rootin' Tootin' Raspberry was my favorite, and then Goofy Grape, of course, was my next favorite.